What's up, guys? I'm Brennan, and this is Alex, and we got to meet for the first time at LegendsCon I, which took place about a year ago today. And it was an awesome event, and what did I like most about LegendsCon? I liked that it was an outlet for me to get to meet all of my friends who love the expanded universe and get to talk about something that I loved so much that I couldn't talk about in person anywhere else. And it was just so amazing and an awesome experience, and I can't wait to live it again, and I'm honored to get to be a part of the team that's helping to put together LegendsCon II. It's going to be great, and it's going to be here in March of next year, so I'm excited for that. What did you like about the first LegendsCon?
The same. I enjoyed meeting everybody for the first time that I've talked to for 2 years online, and then also meeting the authors, because I bothered Matthew Stover for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for LegendsCon II because we have a bunch of amazing guests to see.
Yeah, so it was a great event. We loved it. We got to meet for the first time a year ago, and it's awesome that we're here right now.
Yeah.
And we'll see each other again in 6 months for LegendsCon II. Something about that, yeah. So we're very much looking forward to it, and you guys should be there too.
So we can meet you.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Rawlings, and welcome to the second episode of the LegendsCon Podcast. Today, joining us is Joe Bongiorno, Ken, Arthur, and Eddie.
Hello.
Hello. Right. And today, we are celebrating the fan aspect of LegendsCon because today is the first year anniversary of the first LegendsCon of 2023 that happened September 9th and 10th in Burbank, California. And next year, we are going to be doing our second LegendsCon. That's going to be in Arlington, Texas on March 15th and 16th at the UTA, the University of Texas at Arlington's College Park Center. So today, we wanted to get a couple fans who were present for LC1 together and do nothing more except for share our love for Star Wars and our love for LegendsCon and give them a chance to tell us all about their experiences last year, what they were looking forward to next year, the people that we're going to meet again, and how we're all going to hang out again in Texas next year. And I'll let Legends Consortium's own Joe Bongiorno kick things off.
Hi, guys. So just a brief introduction. My name is Joe Bongiorno. I created StarWarsTimeline.net many, many years ago. I've written several things for the franchise and things outside of it. And probably maybe most well known for co-writing Cult Encounters and writing Supernatural Encounters. And I guess we'll come back around and tell some stories from last year.
Ken, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ken, or Ken Palpatine, whichever you prefer. But I actually am just a guy, just an EU fan. But the one thing that I was proud to have been part of was the Super Lit. Was a series of streams that me and a bunch of friends did. Maxine, Al, Marcel, and Alex and Brennan. We all did a 20-ish series of streams breaking down the entirety of Supernatural Encounters. And it was a very, very, very fun time. Lots of laughs, lots of crazy lore, and funny memes, all encapsulated in 20 streams, or just about 20 streams. But if you haven't watched them, and you're watching this, I'd recommend to go watching Super Lit Encounters. It is a blast.
Right. Yeah. I'm on like episode 5 of it. I boot it up when I'm making breakfast in the morning or if I'm making lunch on an off day. It's taking a while to get through it. What's it, like 75 hours long or something like that? I think
Oh,
I believe
just
the number
about.
was there.
I haven't counted how many hours, but it's long. It's long.
I just got the one where the opening is Al is that plant from
Oh yeah,
no, but I got the bit.
so yeah.
Oh, that was funny.
Oh, the super lit lore.
Anyway,
that was a
I'm
while.
Arthur. I'm a pretty new EU fan, and I found the fandom online, heard about LegendsCon, and my girlfriend and I flew to California for LegendsCon 1. Flew from Vermont, and we're going to LegendsCon 2, and so the flight is going to be more tolerable. Flying from Vermont to Texas, so I look forward to that. But yeah, that's basically it.
Hi, I'm Eddie. I go by Surfer Eddie on YouTube. I've been a fan of the Expanded Universe since roughly about 1997. I've been a fan of Star Wars ever since I can remember, since I was 4 years old, pretty much, watching Empire Strikes Back in the theater. And yeah, I just fell in love with Expanded Universe through one comic, and that just opened up the floodgates. And I'm happy to be here with all of you guys. I attended LegendsCon 1 and didn't expect the announcement for a second one. I was hoping for it, but had a blast. I'm just super pumped to be here and super excited to fly to Texas from California and hang out with all of you guys and all of the other fans.
Right on.
You're awesome, Eddie, and very much looking forward to having you and meeting you all over again, right? And now that you said it, I have to know, what was that comic that started it all, sir?
Actually, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire Evolution #1. And what got me into that was the artwork, because I used to collect comics, and I've told this story before, but if you guys don't mind, I'll tell it again. I was in a comic book shop and just noticed these Star Wars comics, and I had heard that about the novels, but kind of didn't really pay attention too much about it. And I started asking the clerk, the worker at the comic book shop, about the comics, and then I saw Dark Empire and X-Wing comics, and had a stack of them. And we just spent an hour. He just explained everything about the Emperor returning, and just blew my mind. And spent more money than what I should have, because I started in '97, so there was quite a bit released. Of comics, more than anything, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But I just started getting into the novels and loved the timeline, how everything, that's what I think I fell in love with most, the stories, but also how everything connected and referenced. And that's the part that I think was enjoyable, extremely enjoyable for me.
Same here. The fact that everything, once I figured that out at a young age, that once that there was actually effort being put into it, and I even back then I could not find anything else that had a continuity that was stretching back that far, including all the other big names too, Trek, et cetera, et cetera. It's just nothing was like that cohesive. So that was definitely a big part of it.
For sure.
What started it all off, knowing that you could get lost in everything, and that it was all relevant. That's kind of like what gave you the okay to invest that much time, right?
For sure. And then I always say that when I talk about Legends or Expanded Universe, how the comics, the novels, the games outgrew the movies. I mean, we all love the movies. That's why we're here. But just those stories just outgrew the movies in a positive way, obviously, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. That is a hot take. And I share that hot take because, I'll watch the films once a year, sometimes a little bit longer that goes by than that. And I read the books, and it's just that's always, every time that I see the films anymore anyway, that's all I'm really trying to put together as I age and whatnot. It's just like I'm pretty sure I can recall exactly what's going on every give and take 10 minutes of it or so.
Exactly. And when you watch the films now, as us Legends fans, when we watch Phantom Menace, we think about Plagueis, right? What was going on behind the scenes and all that. So yeah, I love that.
Yes, and for episode 3, that's been entirely changed by the EU. There's just so many different ways that we can go on to that, but it's just and there's that one thing that made it into Matthew Stover's novelization of it, when they were going into the fact that Anakin was upset because not because of all the reasons that we were kind of given on screen, but it was really because he wasn't allowed into that library, right? Remember what was it called exactly? Not the Master's Library, but it was something to that effect. But that's the answers, the darker answers that could have helped him, save Padme. And the fact that we got that clarity kind of changed the film, right?
Filling in the gaps for sure.
Yeah.
Even between the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise it felt a little thin. But I guess that's the power of George, right? It's his way, and that's what he wanted us to see. So that's how we got it on screen. Joe's doing really good there, keeping it in.
But it's funny also, if I can add, if we read the Republic comics, the Clone Wars era, plus all the novels before Episode 3, it's kind of like we watch Episode 3 and we understand, we're kind of exhausted with the characters and we're just pumped to watch the movie. It's just, I love how that flows. Great.
They did really well. And that was where it started too. Also for me, Shadows of the Empire, but the Republic series, as far as collecting all the comics and spending too much money and the bike trips and everything else just to make it to the stores. The Republic the Republic series was definitely where it was at for me too. Did anybody else have any of those as far as like the comic books that really got you into things?
I'd say it was actually a book. It was a Jedi Quest, actually. I saw it in the store at Barnes & Noble, and I saw Anakin on the cover, and I was like, what is this? I didn't know there were Star Wars novels. I started reading it, and I was hooked. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I went to go on, and I collected, after the first comic I collected, actually, was Tales of the Jedi. That I fell in love with the art and the story and the old style aesthetic of the Jedi, all the cool looking armor. It was just overall like a really great looking story from an aesthetic standpoint, and that's why I fell in love with it.
It was Chris Gossett who mostly illustrated that. He was replaced at the end, but that was Chris Gossett, who I think is a very underrated artist in the EU. Like, you don't hear a lot of people talking about him as much as he deserves, because that aesthetic is all his. But for me, since I'm already chatting here, it was Dark Empire number 3? I always forget if it's 2 or 3, but it's the one where Luke looks like he's possessed, and he's sort of floating there in black with his eyes rolled back in his head. And like Leia's, that was the one. I said, I'll never forget, because I walked in looking for work at the time. This was 92. And I thought, I should work in a comic book store. That would be fun. And I saw that on the wall. The proprietor had put it up on the wall. And I just looked at it, and I looked at him, and I looked back at it. And I was like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? He's like, oh yeah, Luke turns to the dark side. I was like, oh, okay. How much? The rest was history.
You were sold.
I was, man. And then the Tales of the Jedi comics really did come out right, because those sort of led into them, if you remember, because Luke gets the holocron of Bodo Bass. Or is it the other one, Vodo? In any case, but it's one of the holocrons, and that leads him into learning Ulic Qel-Droma's story 4,000 years in the past. So I was like, holy crap, they're going back 4,000 years? That's nuts. But that was my reintroduction to the EU, because I had collected the Marvel comics when I was a kid. Or should I say my dad sort of brought me the Marvel comics, and it was kind of the same thing. I was like, wait, this takes place after the movie? Like, what? There's more of this story with these characters? Sign me up. But I didn't have access to a comic book shop that was local at the time, and I was just a kid, so I didn't drive. So I was missing, I had missing issues, and back then you couldn't just go on eBay and pick up, like stuff you missed. If you missed it, you missed it. And maybe a friend had it, maybe not. So I had these gaps in the collection until 92 when I started collecting again. And then I went on the hunt to find all the missing issues. And little did I know, Zaz stuff and the UK stuff. It kept growing, you know. So that was my tale. I'll let someone else, Arthur or Kyle, tell theirs.
Well, just to add to Ken's, it's cool to hear someone getting introduced to the EU through the Scholastic books.
Yeah.
It provided that access point. It's just really cool. That's
I wish they would. When you mentioned Jedi Quest, I just thought, wow, I wish they still sold them in stores.
Oh, I know.
So yeah,
Yeah.
They're hard to
Yeah,
find
super rare.
nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Super.
They are
super
very
rare
hard to
novels.
find, and it was it wasn't Quest or any of her series. I believe it was the Young Jedi Knights was it that or Junior Jedi Knights that got an e-publishing recently, but that's it. There was no physical medium provided. I'm pretty sure one of those series got a recent boost in the past year, but it was just online, so
maybe
it's very hard to find them in the stores. Usually you're just kind of resorting, like we were talking about earlier, eBay.
Exactly.
But
I don't even know who has the rights to the Scholastic material now, because it's not like Del Rey can just reprint them. So I'd be curious if I were in Lucasfilm's shoes, I would find out who has the rights and get those books reissued.
Exactly. They're so important. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're super
They are.
important. You know, the lore and everything that they bring out, especially like, I mean, it's not mandatory to read, for example, Young Jedi Knights to get into the New Jedi Order, but it just enhances it, and I would 100% recommend it.
Yeah,
Before, because
agreed.
you get attached to these characters, and it's
Yep.
more, you know,
Yeah.
and then so on with Legacy, it's
Yeah.
even more heartbreaking.
Yeah, I would say Young Jedi Knights is more important prerequisite reading than some of the Bantam era, to be honest. Although I think you should read all of Bantam and Young Jedi Knights before going on the New Jedi Order and everything. But
For
it
me,
really is a cornerstone.
like you
that
say,
prequel era was really helped by the Jude Watson books. Like those really made the Anakin Obi-Wan dynamic, and of course the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon dynamic, so much richer, and deeper and weightier. I think Jude Watson's books are just absolutely incredible, and I would consider that like must reading for like in between episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't agree more. That's where all the as far as from that time period too, that we really didn't get much else. You had Cloak of Deception as far as when those books were coming out, right? What else did we have? Not much else in that time period. So we didn't get too much Qui-Gon otherwise either. In the adult novelizations, there wasn't a whole lot more coverage of him. He was in them here and there, but that's really where all the meat of that came from. And then what, as far as Anakin being a teenager, a little bit older than he was in episode 1, the only one that you got was Rogue Planet. As far as the adult series goes.
Yeah.
That's it. And remember the blood carver and all that?
Yeah.
How all that went down? That's all you get there. I mean, it was really fitting, and it was a nice depiction as far as the adult timeline, because that's usually where I stick to in my canon, my head canon. I incorporate all the stuff beforehand too, but the novels are the ones that I take the most seriously. So that's usually the first thing that pops up into mind is, they kind of have him go a little wild. Spoilers: the book is 20 years old, so but yeah, he goes a little bit wild on a blood carver, and but most of his story is really given to us in those books.
Yeah, that was a surprise. Like, so when the Dark Horse series came out, this was before they retitled it Republic. It was just called Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being like a little, like personally, and you guys can tell me how you feel, but I was like a little surprised, let's just say, that it wasn't telling Anakin and Obi-Wan's story. It was telling us, Ki-Adi-Mundi's story.
Yeah.
And then it went on to other Jedi, and I was like, why? What's going on with Anakin and Obi-Wan? Like, that's the story I wanted to know was theirs, because that's who I was invested in. So I don't know. Maybe you guys felt differently. And maybe that was just me.
No, I remember. I think it came out. Sorry, it came out in '98, I believe, the first issue. And I was actually a little bit disappointed because I saw this Chiarimundi. I didn't know who he was at that time, obviously. And like, who is this? I believe the first issue is him holding a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, where's everybody else? And who is this guy? And the title is just Star Wars. But I'm like, of course, I was in for the ride. And then as the issues progressed, then wow. And then how it ties into, later on, that blew my mind. So, but yeah, I felt the same way at first, but then, embraced it afterwards, as I kept reading.
Yeah. It took some
time. By the time we got to the Inquiry, that's when it started to really pick up. Right? Wasn't that in the same? That was in that early days too, right? Before Quinlan was right there.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Right. Because I think that was the first appearance of Kukrook too, and everyone else that happened there. It was like those early days.
Kukrook's so cool.
He is. He is
great. He's a great guy. Kukrook is an awesome character, especially in Dark Times.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Going along with that, and this can be a hot take also, but for me, we all have our experience reading and our own feelings and opinions and everything, and biases. But these characters that you guys mentioned and other characters in the expanded universe, they've become more of a favorite type of character than the ones in the movies. I mean, I love all the big three. I love Lando. I love everybody. But Jaina Solo, Kip, Ulick. I mean, wow. I don't know, something about those characters that I just really, I can say, sorry if I offend anybody, but I love them more than the movie characters.
You spend more time with them.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You do.
You spend a lot more time with a lot of the characters.
Literally years, right? We see a fraction of their story up on the screen. Not the EU characters, of course, but like, the big three, the big four, arguably. Big six, really, because R2 and 3PO, right? Just to call it what it is, the big six. And I love them too, but the other ones mean a lot more. And I'm in like, the metal scene too, right? So a lot of the things, it's kind of like how that scene operates, right? It's just like you want your stuff underground and, you want to like, it's almost like you're sharing the secret, so to speak, right? And that's how the EU was too. So it's like, oh yeah, especially before 14 and all that, before 2014, if you really had your knowledge and all that stuff was a lot more endearing to you because it's just like, oh yeah, let me show you the way here. When you started talking SW with other folk,
Oh yeah.
Well, I can't imagine like, so for you, Ken and Eddie, so you guys came in. Well, Eddie, you came in at 97. Ken, what year? I forgot what year you came in. It was
like early 2000s, early mid 2000s, somewhere around there. I came in, I'd say after the decanonization of the EU.
Oh wow, okay, yeah,
around there.
What was that? 2014.
I was aware of it before, but I never had like gone and read everything, and they made a conscious effort to like start reading.
Nice.
I had known about it, but I didn't.
So in a sense, you guys had like a pile.
The time or somewhere around when TCW was still continuing as a show was when I decided to start. After like I found out what Jedi Quest was, and then I started reading EU.
Nice. Yeah. See, that's interesting because like you have like a pile to kind of that you can sort of burn through, whereas Kyle, I think you and I started relatively early. So for me, I was there like when each thing came out. So I had to wait. I had to wait for like the next book, comic, and so that's like a longer period. So Jaina and Jason and then Anakin were, like I spent. It feels like I spent years with them. I mean, they were like born, when first, so it was almost like watching them grow up. It's just a weird kind of like perspective. But it's also like frustrating. I would have loved to just, all right, I finished this one. I'm now going to start this one. Like that's fun too.
You had to go through it with patience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome though.
It was a different time. And Eddie, you probably remember too when it was remember the contest to name Cadus?
Oh,
Cadus?
that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
All that fun stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It was different. Yeah. And yeah, patience, like you said there.
I worked
absolutely.
I worked at either both B. Dalton and then later Walden Books. So I got to like open the boxes when they came in.
Ooh,
Yeah,
nice.
like
Ooh.
grab that like first pristine copy and just be frustrated that I couldn't like leave work and go home and read it. You know, it's like, I have to wait for the day to finish before I can read this. Damn, you know.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, it was exciting, you know. So yeah, fun times.
Yeah, with the NJO also, I remember I was there as that one. I was there when as it was being released, and it took, I think it was 3 months gap, I believe, between books, something like that. I'm not too sure. I mean, with time, your memory gets a little fuzzy and blurry, but I believe so. But yeah, it felt like you said, it felt like a lifetime, and I just was like you guys, like just hooked, and just we had to wait, you know, a couple of months for the next one, and yeah. Yeah, that was cool.
I'll never forget, people were pissed off when Truce of Bakura came out, because that was actually released between Dark Force Rising and The Last Command.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. If my memory serves correctly, speaking of, you know, possibly fuzzy memories, but that's my memory of it. And everybody was wanting that third book. And because I have a memory of like telling people like, yeah, no, it's coming. Like that's still coming. This takes place right after Return of the Jedi. But it was a weird thing. It was a weird release strategy. I think they just wanted to ensure that, you know, like when people finished the Thrawn trilogy, they weren't just like, okay, we're done. Like, I think they wanted to hook them into this idea of an expanded universe. At least that's I could confirm that with Lucy Wilson, but at least that's my. The only thing that makes sense in my head as to why they would do that, you know, because it didn't ever make sense to me otherwise. Like,
yeah, no, I think you're onto something there, though. Here's something else in the middle while you wait to make sure that we still have you while, you know, the iron's hot, right? Isn't that what you say, Jeff?
Yeah.
You know, strike while the iron's hot, and those books were quite popular. So.
Yeah, they were. That was like a phenomenon. I was like, oh, this. A lot of people thought, oh, this is the sequel trilogy. Like people did legitimately think that, and you know, and then trying to get them to pick up the comics or the you know then graphic novels were still just sort of like burgeoning as a thing, but to get them to picking up Dark Empire and stuff that wasn't a novel was like a bit tricky, because there was a lot of that. Oh, I don't read comics. That's, you know, I'm like, no, these are adult comics. They take place in the same, you know, universe and the same timeline. And a few would bite, and then a few were like, no, that's not for me. But then when they would come back, when Jedi Academy came out, it's like, when did Luke turn to the dark side? Well, that's Dark Empire.
That's right.
Dark Empire. You want to know?
I told you.
It all comes together.
Yeah, they were good with really kind of forcing you to get into all elements, you know, of literature, gaming, etc. too. I was one of those folk. I played video games when I was young, but I didn't have any interest until Coder 1 came out. Boom, had to get that, you know. The Xbox died. I let the game system, that part of my life, kind of go for a minute. Coder 2 came out. Oh, got another one. So, and for people like you said who don't really read comics, kind of forced you into it. I wasn't as much into the comic realm, but I made sure to make the time for it for Star Wars, you know. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff in when I think on it, that it's just like, I only got into this entire thing because of one thing that y'all made that has Star Wars on it.
Talking about video games, did you guys ever play the I didn't play it, but it was an early Xbox game, an Obi-Wan game?
Yeah.
I've heard of that, but I actually haven't played it.
Yeah, I never played that one, but I remember that was a big deal. I just never got into it.
Yeah.
Oh, it was solid.
I wish I could play it.
Yeah, I think it's on Steam. I'm pretty sure that they've
really?
reissued it for. I think I want to say so. If not, it was an Xbox exclusive back in the day.
Yeah.
Many moons. But I think that it's free platform now, or you can find it on just about anything.
Yeah.
It was worth it. It was definitely. The mechanics I remember being very strange. I haven't played it since I was very small, but but I remember like really getting into it. But you know what that one stood up against though? And I said it before, but I still think one of the best like SW games ever was Episode 1. Did you ever play that for PlayStation?
I did for PS1.
Yeah.
I was I liked it. I was stuck so many times, and it was just I got frustrated over and over again because I couldn't unlock certain gates or certain areas. And yeah, so I did play it though.
The most ESPA sequence was real hard. I had to look up how to get through that.
Yeah, it's a hard game.
Anyway.
That's why you needed your Prima strategy guide to go along with it.
Yeah. Well, these days I just look up a YouTube tutorial. Back in the day, I just go to GameFAQs.com or the strategy guide if I had the strategy guide. But I don't
it was
know
a lot different.
When I played through all the EU games while I was reading EU books, I played them all with cheats anyway. Like I used to game back in the day, but I'm playing the Star Wars games for the lore for the most part. So, you know.
Yeah, I used to say a lot back in the day that they should have like a playthrough button where you can just watch. You know, you can watch the game like you would watch a movie. Particularly if you just like Eddie, like you were saying, like if you were frustrated because you kept getting stuck because the game was hard or you just weren't that good of a player, which maybe was the case for me.
Me too.
I used to play a lot of arcade games back in the day, but this was a whole different,
Yeah, it wasn't Pac-Man or Donkey Kong.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, there were secrets.
That's right. And I didn't have the mountain of available time either to keep doing it. So I always thought, well, wow, you guys are meaning you guys Lucasfilm, you're embedding like exclusive lore in these games. How about, either if you're not going to give us a novelization or a comic book adaptation of it, just give us a play button that we can watch it like a movie. And then you'll have more people buying the games just to get that story.
The lore, exactly.
Yeah. And then
YouTube came along now that serves that purpose, but for years they're basically locked out of the lore. Yeah. And then also too, like say you want to say like an author wants to research it, right? Like that becomes a bit of a challenge because again, time is sort of not necessarily in our favor all the time. So it just seemed to make a lot of sense to go there. And there's a lot of games now. I know there's an archive project out there, and I had the link once and I don't have it anymore, but if anyone knows, leave it in the comments because that's something that we should all like kind of like have and share. So if we ever want to get into some of these Flash games and other games that haven't been reissued, people are working on making those available for us, for the community. So the Clone Wars era had tons of like 50 Flash games, which are some are probably lost. I don't know, but
I don't know if they are. Like I said, I know they're working on all of that stuff. So I just don't know how far their progress is at this point. But I'm sure somebody does and will tell us, so we can at least download it and have it. Yeah, we're all completionists here.
Absolutely.
And probably those watching us are too. So. Like even if I'm not gonna play that, I still want to know I can. Like I still want to know it's there. Like that it's not lost forever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's different when it's gone. And it's not the same thing as just waiting for you for whenever you get to it. That's not the same thing. It's gone.
Yeah.
The Splash games were really cool. And Arthur, there was plenty of them going on in that time period, and it escapes me off the top of my head. But I'd even downloaded one for the phone because there was a reference to Sean Stewart's book, Dark Rendezvous.
Yeah, I remember
there was a reference in it, and it's like, oh look, there's the Battle of Findar Station, right? And it's just like, oh, that's the place where Max Liam got, like pulled through a hall. Remember? Oh, the most metal battles ever.
Yeah.
And Ventress's last appearance in the adult timeline, but not the comics, but just in the books. That was it for her.
Right.
So it was a pretty savage way to go out and whatnot, which very, very long-windedly leads me to, because Sean Stewart was at LegendsCon 1. Do you all have stories of meeting your favorite authors, meeting your favorite friends and people in real life, or again, if it had been some time since you'd met them before? Do y'all have any stories that you wanted to share from LegendsCon 1?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I got a few.
Why don't you go first?
Oh, awesome. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I got to meet all you guys. I got to meet you guys, right? That's what was cool. Meeting all the authors was awesome, and I did get to meet most of them personally, just because, like I'm saying before, this is not Comic-Con, right? There's time for the authors to kind of decompress and hang around between panels, and you can walk up to them and talk to them. I'd be surprised if it's not the same way at LegendsCon II. Not to put any expectations on you guys.
Oh, I think it'll be the same thing. Don't you worry.
Yeah, no, I grabbed a couple. I haven't shown these off because I thought this was funny. I bought a copy of Planet of Twilight to get signed by Barbara Hambly, and it came signed with a book plate. So, it's now signed twice.
Oh man,
Nice.
Oh, that is a cool double trouble.
But yeah, and then I didn't get much signed. I'm gonna have to get more signed next time. I obviously got 4 copies of Supernatural Encounters signed, actually. That might be the entire reason I brought Joanna with me, is so I could buy 2 extra copies. We had a great time, even though she's not a EU reader. She's read like 3 EU books. I've prevailed upon her to read.
At least he's super supportive.
Starfighters of Adamar and Dark Rendezvous. But what's cool about this one is I got signed by Joe and Kyle and Patrick. And so I have to figure out what I'm doing with my luggage, because I want to bring this one, because there's going to be some other editors and proofreaders too at LegendsCon 2. I think that Marcel and I might be, not to brag, but I think we're the only people who got all 3 of these signatures. Maybe not.
Might be.
Either way,
Check
LegendsCon 2 would be a good opportunity to get more editor signatures for that one, at least. I think I'm going to have to bring it. Be almost like
Brennan. See if Brennan's got you, because he's in competition with you.
Oh, yeah. Kyle, did you sign Brennan's? Do you even remember? He's going to be real mad right now, realizing.
No, I believe I did. I think he came out to me. And
okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I signed Brennan's.
Yeah, no, it's just, it was a great time. I remember, actually, do you remember when we first met, Kyle? There was a whole bunch of people trying to get your attention to go do something else, and you'd been awake for like 30 hours.
Yeah.
I forget. I think I introduced myself to you, and you're like, "Oh, you're Arthur." Because we had only briefly, you remembered me. We had only briefly talked online in the Discord there prior to the event. And we, like everybody else, I haven't told this story before, we had like a bro moment of like eye contact. And he like stared into my soul. And he's like, "What do you think? Like, you having a good time?" No, I'm joking.
That's great.
No, but it was a good moment. It was I appreciated that. Kyle's attentions were needed elsewhere, and he paused a beat there, and was like, "Here's somebody I know from online. How's your time been?" And then obviously I've talked about with Joe. And the time I got to spend with Joe was really awesome, talking with Joe.
It was,
and
man.
I met Eddie and Kyle as well. briefly, Ken, sorry, briefly, both of you guys, I want to build on that. See you guys next time, right? Both of you guys I didn't really know well online, and like I was saying for Eddie, it was the same case for Ken. When Ken showed up and when Eddie showed up, everybody else that I did know, they were like, "Yo, Ken's here! It's Ken. You see his mustache?" I didn't. Good time, and there's so many fans I know online that didn't go to the first one that are saying they're going to the second one. So it's going to be like twice as many people that I know personally.
Yeah.
That I'm going to get to there. It's going to be so cool. But
yeah.
Anyway,
it's going to be a blast.
I'm excited. I want to ask Kevin J. Anderson about maybe this is well known. I want to ask him about space opera. Because just because the books have that vibe, it kind of clicked. It finally clicked. That's why they're so different than Zahn's. I mean, they are more appealing to a younger audience, sure, but it's not because they're like written more poorly. He's going for something different. I just kind of can't wait to ask him about that.
Yeah, I got to ask Barbara about that, like what her influences were, which was cool. I invited Barbara to come and sit at my history of space opera presentation, which I momentarily regretted when my voice came out, and I was like, oh, of course I had to ask Barbara to come, and
I sat next to her, and she was constantly, looking up, and she was like, he needs to drink some water.
He's the best. He was great. She gave me at the end of the convention, I asked her, like, so what did you think? And she gave me a whole bunch of pointers because she used to be a teacher. So she's like, a more effective way of doing a PowerPoint presentation would be, I was like, oh, she's right. But I just, that was, that's a memory that I'll always cherish because, we got to hang and talk about PowerPoint and like, how cool is that?
Yeah, she gave you got advice from a true EU legend, right? So
yeah,
that's actually super cool.
She is a legend because she's been around a long time. And she got to tell stories too, about people that she hobnobbed with, and I like that. Like it's you don't always know the connections. Like I didn't know, like I'll give you an example. Joe Duffy was close friends with Harlan Ellison. Like, who knows that? Nope. Like that's super interesting. Like if you like science fiction at all, then that's an odd connection that you wouldn't think. But she was very close with him towards the end of his life. And they all these guys have these stories. Kevin Anderson knew Neil Peart from Rush, like knew him really well, like they were friends. I didn't know that. So that's the fun of getting to talk to, having the time, like you said, Arthur, to actually sit and talk to people is everyone has these stories and they're happy to tell them. And if they don't, like, we never find out, but when they do, it's like, oh, cool, look at this. And these people knew each other and they were friends and they didn't like each other. There's like a lot of fun drama, like that oftentimes they're willing to share when it's been this many, years removed, so good stuff though. Yeah. But I ultimately, I agree with Arthur in that. I'm sorry if I'm cutting ahead. I didn't mean to, but like it really was meeting all of you guys that was, to me, the even more enjoyable because I didn't expect to like just fall in love with all of you guys, and like how exciting that was. The energy and those positive vibes were so really electric. You don't see that, like, often. Even because big conventions, that's a different energy, and oftentimes you're hot and you're tired and you're frustrated because you're mostly dealing with crowds that are very tight. I'm talking like the big Comic Cons and that whatnot. But in a convention like this, you really do get to meet each other and spend time with each other, and that's everyone's in such a good mood. But it's funny, Ken, because Kyle and I met the other Ken
Yeah.
at the airport, and I thought he was you initially. So I'm telling him how I knew you, which was via the Discord, and it turned out he's like, "Oh no, I'm the other Ken." I'm like, "Oh, all right, now I got it."
The lack of mustache threw me off. I'm not gonna lie. I was just like, I'm pretty sure Ken has a mustache, didn't he? But
That's the thing that's so cool. I mean, like you said, Joe, just meeting everybody, because on a personal note, I don't have anybody in my inner circle, like friends and family, that share this passion that all of us here do, and people listening as well. And I don't get to talk about the books or anything in person with anybody, so I just kind of enjoy it. And that's why this online community is amazing, because we get to talk and share ideas and just learn new things. Because one thing that I skipped during, when I started discovering the EU, were the short stories on the Insider and everything. So now, thanks to like people like Brennan, that he's explained where this short story fits. So I'm still learning after all this time. So my point is that in like LegendsCon 1, we were just all together, people that share this love and passion for this amazing lore, this amazing storyline. Just actually physically talking to each other in person was just amazing.
Yeah, agreed.
I agree too.
Joanna was making fun of me. She's like, "Oh, he's happy talking about Star Wars." Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
she's like, "Isn't that sweet? Look how happy he is. He
Right?
can actually talk to people about it."
Well, it's interesting because
Finally.
people on the outside don't realize it, because they think, oh well, everybody likes Star Wars, everyone saw Star Wars, like what's the big deal? But the EU is a completely different world, than just, I mean, we still talk about stuff that happened in the films, obviously, but how many books and comics are there? I mean, like, that's tremendous. I mean, there are, I mean, you have conventions of people who get together over, a few books. Like, look at Harry Potter, for example. That's what, how many in that series? That's 7 books. I've never read them. So
7, I believe, and then there's
7?
I think 8 films. I'm pretty sure that's how it went, right?
Right. They split.
8 films.
Yeah, they split the last one into 2. That's just 7 books, and we have. I don't even know what the total number that we have of just novels alone. It's tremendous.
It's like 153 adult novels, I believe.
And then
it looks like there's like 40 or 50 or so of the. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's like 40 or 50 of the junior books, and that's not even including the whole Young Jedi Knights series, which there was 9? Yeah. So I don't even know at this point.
Yeah,
at least
there's a lot
with the youth books, depending on the level of canon you're talking about, 200 to 300 or so, including the adult books, somewhere in that vicinity, and that's not even touching the comics, guides, or anything else.
It's tremendous.
The short stories.
Yeah. And so that's what I mean. So like when those who go to an EU convention like LegendsCon, which is the only EU convention at this point, it's because we're, regardless of where you are, like in your reading journey, like you're either on the journey or you've taken the journey, right? And some of us have gone on that journey a few times. Like, there's a lot of the books and comics that are downstairs that I've read, 2-3 times more with some of the comics. Like you just don't find that frequently, like in in the quote unquote in the real in your immediate sphere. Let's put it that way, because this is still the real world. But in your immediate circle, like amongst friends and family, you really don't find that. You might get like somebody who's like read the Thrawn trilogy, like you might get that, and that's cool. That's exciting, because you can still talk about that. But people who've going through dozens and more of these things, that's I think that's kind of special, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. And I can say it too. It's just like there is not anyone. I mean, when I was growing up, there was some friends who really got into sci-fi, but we would always meet on the sidelines, so to speak, because they'd either be into Trek or some folk were into like Farscape, other kind of things like that. And even the folk at the comic stores, because people don't say it often, but it's just like as things were coming out, we know them as these awesome works these days, right? Especially because it's all we have when we look at the past. But a lot of Dark Horse books were kind of just that was not what was like selling the most necessarily. They did very well, but it's just like there were so many other things going on that people were massively interested in.
Right.
So you get people who would follow up with it, but again, like y'all said, that as far as a pinpoint in the fandom, it wasn't often that you would get anybody in this room with a very, very broad understanding of most facets, right? Usually it would just be one area that somebody would be really familiar with. And it was usually because of another franchise that they figured they would know this stuff too. The ship friends, right? Doesn't matter what IP they're into. That's like what they know. So I had a couple of those, people who weren't even like really big fans of SW, but would still argue with me about like, the layouts of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those kind of friends. So like sci-fi fans, but it was very tough to find actual hardcore EU fans and whatnot. It was.
I managed a comic book shop in the mid '90s. I think it might have been late '90s, and it was called The Abyss. It was in a town called Limburg, which is a town away from me. I was just telling the story, I think, to Samantha, or someone, but sorry, I forgot. But and I did that for quite some time, and even in that environment, there were very few EU fans that read, like the Dark Horse stuff or even the earlier Marvel stuff. There just weren't. The majority were superhero fans, and that's cool. That's nothing. No shade at them. It's just, but it was hard to find EU fans, again, in your immediate kind of circle. And I guess even in the comic book shops, it was a bit hard to find. So that's what makes LegendsCon special is and the communities that we form and maintain, because it is rare, and when something is rare, it's a bit more valuable. Like you kind of treasure it a bit more, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And we're all there for the right reasons, We're all there because of the community. It's great meeting authors, and that's what we want to celebrate. We want to celebrate those folk who've done all these commitments, and because not every author is like the most excited about the stuff that they did for the franchise as we are. Right, but they still love the appreciation for it. So that's why I kind of fall in with the rest of the sentiment with everyone here. Is just like meeting them was great. Meeting vendors and people who that's what they do for with this brand. That was awesome. But meeting all of you was really the most important part. It's just I don't get starstruck with people, and everyone's just to be perfectly frank, it's just like meeting y'all was a lot different, and that was incredibly meaningful. Coming up to Marcel, seeing him for the first time, and just being like, bro, like all of that. Arthur, and I mentioned there too, buddy. And Ken, I believe we spoke, but I definitely remember the mustache. But that was the best part.
Yeah, so much to enjoy as far as like meeting everybody, the community, hanging out, and just we go through to a panel, talk about it afterwards, super excited, and then I don't know what the reaction was. I'm sure it was positive from the authors, but I don't know if they expected this much appreciation and love from us to them, because those panels went great. They answered these questions. One of the panels that stood out, so many of them, but the Randy Stradley panel, and I remember I asked about Crimson Empire, because I remember when Crimson Empire came out, it was like I loved everything else obviously, but that storyline was like a breath of fresh air. It was so different. So I asked them a question of what inspired that, and it was just great interacting with him and all the other authors.
I can speak from personal experience and from having spoken to Sean and Barbara and Matt and a few others, actually. I think the only one I didn't get to meet was Corinna, but I think
she was great.
All the authors were super like, I don't want to use the word surprised, but like maybe very pleasantly surprised.
Nice.
Because for most of them it had been quite some time. I mean, geez, over a decade, 2 decades, maybe more, in some cases. And so you never know, what the turnout is going to be, or if people are still, interested in this thing all these years later, right? You just don't know. And then, so yeah, it was a very like Sean Stewart is a good example. I think one that's often talked about, right? Because he did his book and then sort of like went on to the next project and didn't really hear any fanfare about it. Like Yoda Dark Rendezvous is I think it's my favorite EU book, right?
It's a fan favorite.
But he didn't know that, and I didn't know other people felt that way about it. I don't think it was until Chris Nelson said on one of his streams that it was his favorite EU book. So I was like, oh wow, that's a fun coincidence. Like, oh, so the two of us, But then other people started saying that it was like in their top 5, in their top 10, and they got to tell Sean that. So like I know he was very taken aback in the most positive way to hear that. Oh, people like this thing, like this, that I did all these years ago. So it's humbling, and I think he said he reread it in case there were any questions like about it, because you do forget, you absolutely forget like the details, and fans, they're it's all like they've been thinking about this stuff for years, and they've got like lists of questions. So the last thing you want is to be like, I don't remember. Yeah. Sometimes that is the case. You just don't remember if it's like a real like minor deal. Like, wait, refresh my memory.
Right. And I believe with him, his daughter was there. So I thought that was extremely cool that she was able to see her dad. Like, I don't know, I see like the authors up there on the panels were like rock stars to us. So I could imagine, her seeing her dad, just being appreciated.
Yeah.
That must have been awesome.
That was nice. Absolutely. Ken, we haven't heard your memories yet.
Oh yeah, I've got a few stories. I've got me actually going there and actually seeing everybody for the first time. I just walk up to everyone and they're like, "Who is this guy? Who is?" And I'm like, "It's me. It's Ken. You guys know me." It was like a funny, silly little moment that I thought was like, it was just a funny moment, the way to introduce myself.
Yeah.
And I think meeting all the authors and like meeting everyone in general, all my friends, like it's one thing to talk to people in like a DM, and then you meet them like in person, and it's just it feels so it feels so real and like almost intimate in a way. Like it just feels very like hard to describe, but it's just it's people you've known for like months and years, and you finally meet them, and it's like you're fulfilling like a childhood wish almost.
That's nicely said.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, if
I remember Ken. Yeah, sorry about that, Joe.
No.
Ken, you had this your hoodie.
Oh,
the
yeah,
Jaina
the Jaina
Solo.
hoodie.
That
Mhm.
was cool. I saw
Yeah.
that. I'm like, dude, that is amazing. That's cool.
A great hoodie. But the other moment, so I don't know if you guys know the other Ken, but he went to the con. He did his whole Thrawn makeup, and we did the
Blue Ken.
Blue Ken, yeah, Thrawn Ken. But we did the whole Spider-Man point meme, and I think that was such, I think, an iconic
that picture, yeah.
iconic moment. I'll actually send that to Kyle, and he can put that up for the video. But I think that was a highlight for me.
I love that picture. That
was a great, great picture.
Sincerely.
Well, that's what I was thinking about what you said, Ken. So had I not gone, things I think would have been very different. Like you meet these people that you've been speaking to,
exactly,
and that solidifies, or at least it could, in many cases, solidify into a friendship.
Yeah, I also think there's like a level of when you're online with someone, there's I guess more freedom because you're behind a screen, but then you're behind a screen, so I wouldn't say like freedom in the sense that you feel like you could say more. And then when you finally meet them, I guess you could.
You're like,
oh,
shit,
man.
I should have said that.
Oh, man, I'm trying to do this. We're trying to win this. But I'm not eloquent. I'm more of like a blunt, off the cuff guy. But
that's okay, man.
Yeah, but it's just there's this freedom of finally getting to meet people you've been speaking to, and it feels very liberating.
Yeah, good way of putting it.
But for authors, I say, for my experience, I think Stover was the one I definitely had a good impression of, or like just he felt very, just he was a great guy, and his personality felt very grounded. Like he almost felt like, I guess, like grounded. Like I said, he's a very grounded guy.
He had a presence, right?
Yeah, a very, very, very articulating presence. He was a very down. He kind of felt like that guy. You go to like a small town diner and you walk in and he feels like the regular guy that's always friendly and always down to earth. That's always at the bar.
Yeah.
And
always ready with a story.
Yeah, always ready with some cool story.
Got that great picture of Alex talking to him too, of Alex going up to the table and over talking to him. That's I'd say that picture and the picture of the two Kens picture is two of my favorite pictures.
Oh yeah,
from the whole convention.
I think you're going to find that with Kevin Anderson as well when you get to meet him, because he has that same or similar. He's not quite as boisterous as Matt Stover is, but he has that same like everyman quality to him. Like he's humble, he's down to earth, got a million stories for you. So yeah, you guys are gonna enjoy getting.
He definitely feels, if I may, Anderson definitely feels more like gentle. I've seen like interviews with the guy, and he seems more soft-spoken.
Yeah. I had dinner with him and Rebecca in the mid-90s, and they are both soft-spoken in that regards. And like I said, just like regular people, like they immediately put you at ease, which is a nice quality. But I think that was true of everyone. Yeah. Nobody was high and mighty or
no, not at all. I don't want to sound like I'm like putting certain people up on these. Everyone at the con was like, they were all great people, but I just felt some of the authors stood out to me more than others, but they were all great people.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, you connect more with certain ones than others.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just
you see common ground in, and then you connect with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I thought it was awesome that Barbara wore her Jedi robes. Like that's
Yeah, that was definitely brought a lot of personality. I
yeah,
thought it was very very awesome to see.
right.
And then
And rumor has it that she will also be wearing Jedi robes for LC2.
awesome.
Throw it out there.
Good. I expect so.
There are authors I wish that were going, but I'm not sure if I can say that on this podcast. I'm not sure if I can say who I wish was going. That's allowed.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
The one author I wish, I don't know if you guys are allowed to say that you've been talking to him, but I wish, I hope that Steve Perry goes. I'm a big fan of his work. And I love Shadows of the Empire, and especially like Steve wrote like a bunch of the Alien novels, and I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah,
and I'm a huge Steve Perry dork. I hope he goes so I can. I have so many questions for that guy.
Yeah, this is the fan episode of this podcast, so you can ask and have dreams and whatnot, all of that. Tell us all of it. It's
all
a lot
my
of fun.
hopes and dreams.
I don't know what Kyle would allow me to say or not say, but
we won't get too far on anything for the sake of, but
okay.
But I do want to hear from you though, Ken. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I
guess the reason I haven't been talking is I think I've been like not technical. Like you guys have sound.
I think it may be the PC that I'm running things on here.
No worries, though. No worries.
But we're fortunately almost through the end here. So I'll
One thing I do want to bring up as far as since I am traveling from California to Texas, super excited about that. One thing that I believe it was Scott in another stream about recommending to take the Topps cards. Do you guys remember those cards that had EU, for example, book covers and artwork from the comics and stuff like that? So I think I'm gonna take his suggestion, and I recollected the cards. I've been collecting that recently and have quite a few. So I think I'm gonna take my little album and have them sign the cards. That'll be kind of like an easy, easy way to travel with.
Nice.
For this next one.
Nice. Awesome.
Oh no, that's a genius idea.
I am still deciding what books to bring. I have so many. I'm gonna have like giant duffel bags worth of novels.
I was about to say that's gonna be my closing question for everyone is things y'all want to see get signed at LC2, and your favorite people that you're looking forward to meeting. And I can say for that too that I have a couple things that I'm looking forward to. For example, this guy right. I'm gonna have Mr. Whitman sign it for me because he worked on all those ADs, those audio dramas. So since our connection's getting a little bit chunky here.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, Kyle. It just occurred to me, John Whitman's a super nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
So he's someone also worth, if you can spend some time with him, do so, because he's super awesome.
Yeah, so I think he'll be great. And one of those other folks may or may not, have experienced a huge amount of love for the film. We'll be able to show it.
Paul and Hollace
next March
Davids are they're another bunch of authors that have never gotten the love that I think that is warranted and that they deserve. So I'm excited for them to get to feel that, to have fans come up to them and talk about these 5 really super cool books that they wrote. I remember when they came out, and I remember those covers that Drew Struzan illustrated. I think maybe my favorite illustrator, certainly for Star Wars.
Legend, all those movie posters, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, all those Spielberg Amblin movies.
He did the cover of Black Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath album, their 5th album in 1970.
No way!
Oh, wow.
So him doing those covers was like, whoa, what are these? I thought the books were tremendous fun. I mean, yeah, they were wacky and they were out there, but I didn't care. I mean, half of Star Wars is wacky and out there. The droids the cartoons and the Ewoks cartoons. And, there's lots of it. Star Wars it's a big galaxy with room for lots of things. So I think more people love those books now than maybe when they initially came out. So it's a good time, for them to be celebrated.
Absolutely. And speaking of Star Wars artists, Dave Dorman has to be my favorite. His art is so unique. His and then Cam Kennedy's art are both very, very unique.
Yeah, they are. I used to joke about Cam Kennedy's artwork because we had a TV that was on the Fritz, and it would only show green and magenta. So when I would read through Dark Empire, I was like, this is like my broken TV from back in the day. Those are the primary colors he used was magenta and green. I think it's cool now. At the time, I didn't appreciate it as much, but now I think it's like a bold sort of choice to sort of do it that way.
It's so definitely unique, so different.
Very unique. Very unique art.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of great artists from particularly those early years of Dark Horse. Before everyone knows and loves Jan's artwork, but like pre Jan, there were a lot of really creative sort of, I'll call them visionaries, because that's what they were doing. They were kind of like putting their unique stamp on this universe. Now that's celebrated. So, if you've ever seen like the Star Wars Visions, the animated series, like that, people appreciate that now. I think in the early 90s, I don't think people were quite ready for different stylistic approaches. Like it was remember, this was a different generation, and it was, fans were not as open or broad-minded as all of you guys are, and as your generations are, so, and thank God that you guys are that way, because, it's more fun to be open-minded than it is to be closed-minded and only want one thing. We want all books to read like Bimzan. It was like it's sort of like the attitude a lot of fans in my generation had then. So thankfully that's not the case now. So more Arthur, what are you looking forward to in this coming March?
Well, books, I really have to make some decisions about the books I want to get signed for luggage purposes. But the 3-volume Supernatural Encounters has to be signed. My other 4 editions signed. And then I also have to consider if I want to. There's just hard choices. I might have to get whole extra luggage just for books. Last time I actually brought a duffel bag full of bubble wrap, and then it was filled with wrapped books on the way home. Well, I've got the already signed Supernatural Encounters to consider bringing. I'd love to show people the leather-bound one and to get that signed. The hard
that makes me nervous just hearing.
Yeah, it's like you're bringing the Necronomicon or something.
Yeah.
And then I've got.
Does your book come with an insurance plan?
What's that?
No, I was making a terrible joke. I was like, does it come with an insurance plan? Because it might be wild.
Nope.
You might want to hire someone to help carry books. I think that.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of that.
Mine was a pain.
I've got that custom book that I want John Whitman to sign, and science fiction book club edition of Jedi Academy trilogy that I'm going to get signed. And then I think I got to squeeze the Essential Atlas in there.
Yes.
And pick out my favorite.
If you got Jason to sign it last year, you'll have to get Dan to sign it this year. So,
I didn't. But Dan, I don't know. My OCD will be okay with it because Dan Wallace is the first author name on it,
Correct.
right? Okay, all right.
So Dan's another really cool guy. I've known Dan since the early 90s. We were both part of the SWFA, the Star Wars Fanboy Association. I hate saying that because it sounds so corny, but it was meant to be corny. And that Dan is a super nice guy. So do spend time with him because he's really cool. He's really knowledgeable about the EU.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know that he's ever. I don't know if he's been to a Star Wars convention, but he's certainly never been to an EU one. And you know, he's going to be thrilled, you know, by all of you guys, you know, having stuff for him.
And his contribution to the EU is really unique out of the author lineup. That's so.
Yeah.
And us fans will bring the appreciation for sure.
Yeah.
He's going to be.
Absolutely.
That's kind of going back to what you guys are all saying about Eddie saying that the authors felt really appreciated, and you guys confirming that, Kyle and Joe. But it's like I could tell too, right? I just think that it's through our enthusiasm they could see that we're keeping their work alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
I imagine that's a really nice thing to see. And so for Dan, there'll be people there that actually understand how important his work for the EU was, as not like an author of novels, but source books and lore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
yes, the deepest cut that can be given is Dan's work, right?
And
Deepest cuts.
and I don't know if you guys have all played KOTOR 2.
Oh yeah.
As I've told Chris, like his contributions to Sith lore, I think is one of the most significant because
Yes.
I mean everyone still talks about, you know, Darth Nihilus and Kreia and Darth Sion, yeah, because they were such cool characters. And also too, like what he was. There he is.
Nice, Arthur.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, buddy.
And what he was intending, which I just got a chance to tell him, which was nice, because what he was intending with the true Sith out in the unknown regions was something that, you know, I ran with the help of Kyle and Ed. That's something I ran with his conception of what he was planning for the future of the true Sith, which he never got to develop, which is
I just read that in your end notes. I just read that.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, the people are going to have questions for that man. I hope he is ready.
Oh yeah.
He's pumped. He's definitely excited.
It's going to be great having Chris there. I think people are from all walks of fandom and whatnot because of everything that he did with Fallout and the fact that he's created some what most people consider masterpieces. His list is so long that that's going to be kind of nice too. I think we'll get some folk who really get to appreciate what we're into. You know, as far as the EU and whatnot, and come as fans of other things and see what we're all about. I think he's going to really add to all that.
Definitely.
And maybe it's been a long time since they've contributed to the EU, but I think the Davids are most certainly going to be receptive to that positivity, because it's been some years since they've added things, and we all know that their work is a little bit debatable as far as just like where it stands on the timelines, et cetera, and I think that it's going to be a blast, and for them to see the overwhelming love from our community as they get a chance to meet them, I think that's going to go over really well too.
Well, they're another case, right? That they didn't get to complete their story because there were supposed to be 3 more books, and that would have, because everyone's like, oh, there's a discrepancy between Courtship of Princess Leia and you know what happens in the Jedi Prince books with Han and Leia, but in the next 3 books that would have been explained. and they didn't get to tell that. So
that's something that I'm going to take that, Joe, as the question that you'll have for the Davids.
yeah,
For most assuredly.
yeah. Like, give me an outline. I want to know. I want to know what those next 3 books we're going to have, and then I'll put it on the timeline so that we can all, read it and be like, oh, okay, cool. This was going to happen next. Just saying. I think it would be cool. I'm all about the lost stories.
Be very cool.
And also too, we didn't mention Shannon, who's the Mara Jade, who's super excited to come and share the love, because she's really embraced, her role as that character. And she's gone through a lot, and she's super pumped to join us and to sign whatever Mara Jade stuff we've got. I know Kyle's got all kinds of fun things.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of the cards, Eddie, because she was on some of the cards, and Insider, cover of the Insider, which you've been doing the Insiders recently, by the way, and I think that's awesome that you are. Because
thank you.
Again, like, a lot of people don't realize that there's all these short stories in those back issues.
Ooh, yeah, the statue, the Gentle Giant.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's my. I'm bringing that.
That detail on that bust is amazing. It's so awesome.
So, yeah. So
that is exciting. That
it
she's
is
actually going, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal because she's part of the EU. She's, like you said, the face of Mara Jade. And, so I'm excited about that as well.
The thing, I mean, so, like, what she has, a lot of actors in movie roles don't always have, is a continued love for the character. So, I mean, look, we see this with Harrison Ford, right? I mean, he's the biggest name that we know, who was kind of like, yeah, Star Wars, which is disappointing when you first learn that, because you're like, what? Like, really? Like, that's your take? I wish Han had died, which, he got his wish in the Disney canon. I don't know anyone else who wanted that, besides him and maybe Kasdan, Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote the screenplay for Return of the Jedi and co-wrote the screenplay for Empire Strikes Back, because Lee Brackett wrote pretty much all of it with some changes. But so a lot of actors are just like, yeah, that was something I did then, and they don't want to be known for that. I think even Alec Guinness was, it's like, I've done Bridge on the River Kwai, and I've, he's done like a lot of prestige films, but he'll forever be known for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and rightly so. I mean, he's the Gandalf of that film.
That one hurt, by the way, because hearing Harrison say it, I was like, well, he's so cool that, he's just being cool.
Right.
But for Alec, though, that one, for some reason, that hit a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. But again, he was an old man at that point, and I understood his perspective, even though I didn't agree with it. But so it's, it's nice that when you do meet actors and models and such that are really do love it, like they're still really into it. So that's what I appreciate about her the most, is that she really does love that character, as do many of us. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She represents that huge character in Expanded Universe. I mean, just the essential character in it. So, yeah.
Kyle, do you know if does she know about Mara? Can I say spoilers for Legacy of the Force?
I know where you're going with this.
I know.
I know.
Let's just leave it at that.
Oh yeah. No, okay. She's really invested in the whole thing. She's aware. One person we haven't brought up yet who's going to be there, and that's Mr. Denning, and he's written dozens of works too. So.
So much.
Troy is huge. He is huge. Troy's I mean, the stuff he's done, I think, is tremendous. Now, I'm not going to say a word about any of it because I know I know Stevie is like still going through a lot of that stuff. So I want to respect that. I don't care that the books are. I have no sense of time anymore. 25 years old, or something. I don't know.
Say just about, yeah.
But
for Denning wrote the closers and whatnot.
He did
for the timeline. So 10-ish.
Well, those books came out in the early to mid 2000s, and
for the NJ, but Troy was a good bit of Fate of the Jedi series, like the Legacy of the Force series. They did the whole tandem approach, right? So Fate of the Jedi was what was it, Alston and then you had Travis.
And those are what years? Give us a time frame.
2000 and what? 5. I have to open her real quick as far as Betrayal, because it's right here, so there's no reason there's no reason to look it up when you just have it here.
Yeah.
So Betrayal by Mr. Alston. Excuse me. First edition, 2006. So that's where it kicked off, and then Crucible was right up to the end.
So not yet.
That
20
was
years. No, so we're 18, about 18 years. Still quite some time. But look, there's the beauty of this fandom, right? Is that there are people coming into it every day. There's somebody new that's decided, I want to try this thing out. They fall in love with it, and they become fans. So this is still a very relevant community, right? It's not just it's people that are from young to old.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so I asked because I didn't want to be the one to say to Shannon like to any like and then her response be like, what happened?
Really?
You didn't want to be the person to let her know, huh?
Right.
No,
bad news.
I'm sure she's had many experiences of people talking to her about it over the years.
Sure.
Don't worry, Joe, because that was a Sacrifice, and that was quite some time ago. I think that was in 2008ish or somewhere in that realm where that was. But all the same, yeah, she had her time to grieve, I think. but
Troy is a lot of fans coming to him. I think Troy's gonna be huge.
Yeah, I love the work that he did connecting to the prequel trilogy with Tatooine Coast and
Tatooine Coast. It's a beautiful book.
Absolutely.
And it's like that's a book. Is like, do I need to buy myself a copy? Someone sent me a copy, a hardcover of Balance Point. So now in my head, I'm like, well, I guess that I need all of the new Jedi Order now.
Oh yeah, you do.
Might as well.
Yeah, you do.
To me.
Yeah, and on that note too, as far as buying, I'm sorry if I cut somebody off. My lag was a little bit there.
No, I know he has it in paperback. You mean in hardcover?
Yeah, and for that too, the authors will make sure that it's on our website of what they're going to be bringing, who is going to be bringing to the show as far as versions of their novels and whatnot, to try to help everyone out as far as what are you going to pack. Do you want to just buy this here when you get here? We'll make sure that that's all on the website and in everybody's minds beforehand to try to save you and your spine a little bit while you're moving through the air. We could try and do a comprehensive list of everything for every author has worked on, right? Yeah, that might be a bit much. I don't know, because there's a lot of obscure, like you said, like trading cards and things like that. Like there's a lot to sort of like remember, like and this and that. Like Troy did. First Star Wars work was for West End Games. It was it was like a choose your own adventure type story. Yeah. So
he did two, right?
He did.
One?
He did two.
No, there was two.
Luke one and a Han one.
Okay.
Yeah. And he did an adventure journal that is very expensive.
Yeah.
I believe if I'm getting it.
I'm gonna ask him about weird fiction. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he'll give me an answer I'm satisfied in, but like, I mean, it's obvious that is weird fiction inspired. But he even he uses some words too, where it's like, okay, so you've read some weird fiction, like he described just the way he describes her, he literally says weird or grotesque or and
So-
he uses the word entity, right?
Yeah.
On that note, Arthur, because we're about an hour and 34 minutes into this. I'm going to let you start. Is that your question? Because everybody gets a chance to say their the question that burns within to ask any given author or authors before we close this meeting. So Arthur, if you want to go first, boom, you got it.
there it is.
That's it. You're gonna ask.
That
You're
was
gonna
easy.
ask Troy about weird fiction.
Yes.
Right on. I think he's the perfect person to ask about that. Eddie, where do you stand?
Let's see. Kevin J. Anderson, just asking him that he's pretty much after Timothy Zahn, he's the one who was involved in the comics and a lot of novels and everything. So just asking him about the inspiration on that and how it felt being pretty much from the beginning of what the EU is, what we know now. So yeah, I'm so glad he's going. I'm super excited about him being there, as well as Troy Denning and everybody else.
Yeah, both of them, two architects for the most part.
Architect,
yes.
Holding it all
Yep.
together for their respective times. So,
Agreed.
Great
And-
questions.
So I think my big question for Denning, I can't say because of spoilers for people who haven't read the book, but it's an NJO, a certain book that he wrote, arguably his most famous book, I'd say. But there's a certain character, and I have many questions about that character in Star by Star.
Nice. Very cool.
That one that I was holding up, huh? Because that's my favorite book by him too. That's one of my favorite books, not even of just SW, but just one of my favorite books, period.
Hands down, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Star by Star is fantastic.
It is a masterpiece, and and IMO, as people say these days, right? In my opinion,
In my opinion.
yeah.
I think it's a popular opinion.
Beautiful at certain points. Star by Star is
Star
beautiful.
by-
Minor spoiler
absolutely.
for 20 seconds, just to illustrate my point. When one character dies on the ship and the rest of the characters down on the world ship are listening to her sing before she dies. Beautiful.
Oh,
So many
my
moments.
so many heartbreaking moments in that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Denning's magnum opus, I like to call it.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's fair. And people may not have really got into it, but I loved Crucible too. I don't know. A lot of people.
Crucible was a fun book.
Yeah, I
People
like
don't seem to think favorably of it, but it's a fun book.
Apocalypse. That was that had moments,
Apocalypse
too.
was a wild ride. That book
Yeah.
is. That book is
Go, Ken.
honestly, Apocalypse and Crucible, when I first read them, they both felt like fever dreams at points.
Yeah.
I can
Especially
see
the
that.
end of Crucible felt like one long trip.
Star by Star
I
feels
think with Crucible, I feel people
massive,
judge that
though.
book as being meant to be the end when it really wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to be the end. So it's kind of unfortunate his position, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great writer, he's a great author.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the book as well.
Yeah.
I think Denning was put in a difficult position trying to
Exactly.
end the journey of our big three, trying to please as many people as possible. But I think he did a good job.
Well, it's a bridge book, right? Like it
yeah,
was
exactly.
meant
It's
to be-
passing of the torch.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have very well just set up for, you wouldn't know the difference. It was just the closing of the entire Legacy era. But
Yeah.
on that note, guys, thank you all so much for your time. If you want to take a moment, describe any social media that you have that you want people to follow you with, your handles and whatnot. And I'll let Arthur here go first. Arthur, is there any for your YouTube channel? Do you want to?
I have a YouTube channel. If It's called Arthur Lowry, and there's some silly stuff there that you might enjoy.
I have to say it's pretty awesome.
It is. We all
It'll
do.
make your
enjoy it.
day.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Awesome. And Eddie?
Eddie, I go by Surfer Eddie on YouTube. Just make content, just expressing my love towards Legends, expanded universe, and just share some stuff that I have and like to talk about it.
It also
Awesome.
rocks. So definitely,
thank you.
Right. Yeah.
And then I've actually got my Insta page, Kenneth Palpatine. I just post whatever I feel like posting. Honestly, it's not really like a fandom centric page, but occasionally I'll post stuff like EU related.
Cool. I didn't know you
Awesome.
had one, so I'll seek it out.
Yes, all of their pages, to those who are listening, are flipping awesome. So, and thank you all for making the time as fans to come here and talk with us and share your stories and your love for what we all love. You know, it's really appreciated. I know it's an hour and nearly 2 hours of your life on a Friday night, and it goes a long way with us here. And I'm very
honored to be invited.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute blast.
Thank you so much.
I've had a lot of fun.
And Joe in the same stream is totally cool.
Well, I can't wait to see you again next year. March 15th, 16th, right? 2025, we'll be over in Arlington at the UTA. It's going to be something else. And again, I can't wait to see you there. So on that note, guys, follow us on LegendsConOfficial.com for all LegendsCon updates. And yes, we will see you here soon.